All right, it's time to compare the Logitech Combo Touch to the Apple Magic Keyboard. Which one of these two more premium, a little bit more expensive keyboard cases is actually right for your M4 iPad Pro? All right, so first let's talk about the weight and the thickness of these two cases here. Weight-wise, I'm gonna say they're basically identical. If I have to say one is heavier than the other, I would probably say the Magic Keyboard is actually heavier in this case than the Logitech, which is pretty impressive. So it's not significant. Like, I can't really tell for sure that this is heavier, but if nothing else, the Logitech is definitely not heavier than the Magic Keyboard, at least not anymore, and that's a really good thing. As far as thickness, there's definitely more case here with the Logitech Combo Touch, but it's not like it's significantly thicker. And let's put the iPad in the Magic Keyboard so you can kind of see the whole combined thickness here. So as far as the thickness, when the iPad would be in each of these cases, it looks like the Magic Keyboard is still just so slightly thinner. It's really, really cool that Logitech made their case almost as thin as the Magic Keyboard with the iPad inside. That was not always a thing with Logitech's cases, and that is a huge benefit to me personally because I like my tech not to feel super chunky and big and bulky when I have a case on it. I like it to still feel thin and usable. I basically don't want the case to be so big that it gets in the way of me actually using the device. So next, let's talk about the actual materials that they use to make these cases, and honestly, they're very similar. So Logitech now makes it out of a silicone material just like Apple. However, if I had to say one is more high quality than the other, I would give it to Apple. It does still feel a little bit better than the Logitech version, but it is very, very minor. And considering this is $80 cheaper than Apple's version, I don't think the quality of the silicone warrants the $80 higher price tag. So while those materials are very similar, the Magic Keyboard actually uses a lot more aluminum in its design. The entire keyboard section here is made out of aluminum, and the hinge is entirely aluminum, and that does make it feel a lot more premium, and it gives a nice level of weight to the bottom to keep the iPad secure up top. Where with Logitech, they have that same silicone material on the inside of the case as well, which is not awful by any means. The old version of the Magic Keyboard uses this exact same style. So basically, it doesn't feel low quality, but it is something to note, and I do think that the Magic Keyboard still feels higher quality and a bit more premium and solid with this aluminum bottom. But the Logitech does use aluminum in one spot, and that is the bottom of the keyboard case, as this entire section right here is a sheet of aluminum, and it gets very fingerprinty, but it is metal there, and I think that helps keep the rigidity of the keyboard since it's now so very thin. And this case is primarily made out of plastic, and that does make this section feel a lot less high quality. There's no microfiber lining right here. This is made out of a TPU material on the border, so it's kind of flexible, but it's still very rigid. And then the actual base case itself, as you can see behind the stand and everything, that is all just regular hard plastic. Nothing super special there. So as far as the build quality, I am going to give the win to the Magic Keyboard. I do think it does feel a higher quality. It is also more expensive, so it kind of should be. But yes, overall, this is the better quality keyboard case. I think the microfiber here makes it feel really nice against the iPad. The magnets are strong. Everything about it does exactly what you think it should and what it's supposed to do. And that's really, really nice to see. And while we're mentioning that, let's talk quickly about pricing. The Magic Keyboard is $300 for the 11-inch and $350 for the 13-inch. And the Logitech Combo Touch is $220 for the 11-inch, and it is $260 for the 13-inch. $80 cheaper for the 11-inch and $90 cheaper for the 13-inch. So you are saving almost $100 on both of these, which is pretty nice. So yeah, for pricing, obviously the Logitech gets the win because it's the cheapest, and that is a good option if you're on a budget and you have to save every $100 you can. All right, now let's talk about how protective these cases are to your very expensive iPad Pro. So first up is the Magic Keyboard. And when you set it in here, it magnetically attaches, which feels very secure, but it is just magnets, which means theoretically you can pop this out or something else could pop it out and it could detach from the case. Much easier than actually fitting into the plastic like in the Logitech. But how else can this protect your iPad? Well, it obviously protects the screen when it is shut. The silicone of the case bumps out a little bit past the edge of the keyboard case itself. So if it would directly fall on its side here, it wouldn't hit the side of the iPad directly. But if the surface is uneven at all, or if there's anything sticking up at it, it could totally still scratch up the side of this iPad. They are completely exposed, almost all sides. The only side that's mostly covered is behind the hinge. So very minimal drop protection, minimal scratch protection for the sides especially, and overall it's more about the function of the keyboard than being protective. This is definitely not one of those cases that you can put your iPad in and expect it to be taken care of for sure, no problems. That's just not this one. So taking the iPad and moving it to the Logitech case, let's snap it in here. It obviously snaps in with the plastic around it, so it holds in very, very well. And now the iPad is protected on all sides, except for where it is cut out for the Apple Pencil. But if you have the pencil attached, then your iPad's covered on all sides. Because of this plastic being on the borders here, that absorbs impact much more than other kinds of materials. And this will definitely do much better in a drop protection scenario. Now, I don't really drop my iPads. I have never really done that before in my life, honestly. So I'm not too worried about it. But again, if this is something you're looking for, if you're looking for drop protection or just scratch protection on all sides, well, the Logitech is offering it and the Magic Keyboard is not. So yeah, as far as protection, the win is going to the Logitech because it just does a much more full job of keeping your iPad safe. All right, so next let's talk about the different viewing angles that these cases give your iPad. So first, let's take a look at the Logitech Combo Touch. So here's a much more standard viewing angle where you can do some typing. You can very clearly see your iPad here, but you can have some pretty interesting viewing angles here. This hinge in the back will actually just stay at any position you move it to. And it's a decently strong mechanism, so it'll hold your iPad up at virtually every single angle. So you can have it almost exactly straight up and down, or you could have it really reclined back if you're maybe a much taller person, so this is better angle for you to look down at. Or if you want to do some drawing angles, you can go all the way down here. And that is pretty nice. Then obviously you could attach the keyboard as well and just do some Apple Pencil drawing. This is something that Logitech has a very significant edge over the Magic Keyboard, in my opinion, is actually thinking about, okay, people typically get an Apple Pencil with their iPad. And I totally have used this mode with the keyboard case all the time. I almost use this more than the actual keyboard itself. And that's a pretty interesting statement right there. And that might lead me into my final conclusions at the very end of this video. I'll also include this with the viewing angles. The keyboard itself can fold all the way back, and that disables the keyboard and can create a slightly elevated view for the iPad itself. It can completely collapse and go backwards like this, or the keyboard can detach, flip around, and do all those things and create a much cleaner look on the back. All those things you can do with this Logitech Combo Touch because of its two-piece design and the hinge portion of the keyboard case. All right, so then we come to the Magic Keyboard. So this keyboard has two main hinges, and that's what gives you its angle. So the first hinge locks into position right here. And to me, this is still a pretty unusable angle. It's straight up and down, and you're never gonna wanna use it directly at that angle. But if you need to, it is there. And then the secondary hinge allows you to go from straight up and down all the way back about this far, which this is actually more than the old Magic Keyboard would offer as far as viewing angles. So that is an improvement, but it is certainly far from Logitech Combo Touch. So again, I'm gonna give viewing angles to the Logitech Combo Touch. However, what I could have included in this section, but I did not choose to do so, is the hinges themselves. I think this deserves a whole other section on it. The Magic Keyboard's hinges feel way more secure. These feel very, very well made, especially the lower hinge on the Magic Keyboard. It is very solid, and this aluminum makes it feel incredibly well made, well put together, and it has the secret weapon of the Magic Keyboard, and that is the extra charging port. I know many people who only have this keyboard because of that charging port. It is hard to beat that. That is really, really nice to have, and obviously the Logitech does not include any other charging port on the case itself. And while the hinge feels like it'll hold its position, it's definitely not quite as high quality and sturdy as Apple's. And something that kind of concerns me is that I can already see creasing happening on the silicone material right by the hinge. Not sure if you guys can see that on camera or not, but it is a pretty significant crease, especially when I do angles like the drawing angle and have the stand this far back. When I fold it back the other way, you can see the crease a lot more visibly right there. And I promise I just cleaned this keyboard case right before filming here. And yes, it is this smudgy and this dirty already, and I don't see that on the Magic Keyboard at all. Now, I think that is the color, because the black Magic Keyboard certainly gets pretty stinking smudgy. So I think this is just the white one doing a really good job of hiding those fingerprints. But that's honestly a complaint I have with the Logitech Combo Touch, is it doesn't come in white. And I want a white one, but that's a whole other thing. So as far as the hinge, because of how solid and well constructed they feel in the Magic Keyboard, and because of that charging port that is incredibly useful to have, I will say the Magic Keyboard hands down wins this category. All right, so here we come to the footprint of these devices. And this is where the rubber meets the road, if you will, or the silicone meets the road. You know what I mean? First of all, I just want to say the Logitech Combo Touch's keyboard case takes up a lot of space versus the Magic Keyboard. If you just look at how much space on the desk the Logitech is taking up, it's significantly more, almost double what the Magic Keyboard is taking up. And that is not good, in my opinion at least. It is hard to put the Logitech Combo Touch in a scenario that is cramped. For example, I shared earlier in one of my videos that I like taking the 11-inch iPad Pro with me to places like a restaurant or something like that, because I can totally work on it there, even with a small amount of space on a table. I could not do that very well when I had the Combo Touch on it. I just took it to a restaurant literally 2 days ago, and I couldn't use the keyboard with it because I didn't have enough space on the table. I had to detach that part and just use the touch screen the entire time. And while it was fine and I did it, I would like the option to use the keyboard that I'm paying for. And I could use it with the Magic Keyboard. I could not with the Logitech Combo Touch. And because of that too, when you use this in your lap, it is definitely less comfortable and it takes up a lot of space still. So if you're a shorter person, you might not have enough space in your lap to hold this keyboard case, especially if you're going for the 13-inch. I'm about 6 foot and I can do it relatively fine, but I don't know if people much shorter than me or smaller than me are going to be able to comfortably fit that in their laps. Now, if you get it in a pretty secure position, it's almost more stable in your lap, but the Magic Keyboard, in my opinion, is still more comfortable in your lap, as it's easier to maintain. You don't have to fiddle with it as much. I've also accidentally triggered the trackpad by stressing the bottom section of the keyboard case in one of the corners. It will click the trackpad. In fact, you can probably hear that right now. Let me get that a little bit closer for you guys. I'm not actually hitting the trackpad. I'm just squeezing the sides. And because it's so thin, it registers as an actual click on the iPad itself. So yeah, much bigger footprint, less convenient on the lap, and in some ways it's less solid too because of how flimsy the bottom keyboard is. Now, when you detach the keyboard, the form factor is even smaller than the Magic Keyboard, which makes sense. But again, you're not doing the same functions. You're basically taking away the entire point of this keyboard case. So it's just a fancy stand, which, I mean, honestly, it's still not a bad one. So is not having the ability to detach this keyboard a big deal breaker for the Magic Keyboard? No, I don't think it actually is. While this is really convenient, I don't think it's a deal breaker to not have here because of the magnetic attachment. It's super easy to pull your iPad off of the Magic Keyboard. Either just set it back on top of it, or just set it in a different case like the Folio case that's magnetic as well, or just use it bare on a table or something like that. You'll just have to be a little more careful with it. So as long as you're understanding that this iPad is not going to be quite as protected, which we already covered earlier, I don't think it's a deal breaker that the Magic Keyboard cannot detach its keyboard section. All right, now these keyboards, what do they actually feel like? How do they work for us? So the Logitech feels really good to type on. I mean, I honestly was not complaining at all with the keyboard feel. No issues there. I will say the Magic Keyboard feels a little less mushy. They're a bit sharper of a key press. So if you don't mind a little bit mushier, well then Logitech's gonna be just fine for you. And they're not really different. They're very similar experiences. I don't think one's significantly better than the other, but I think the fact that this is all metal here allowed them to have really good mechanisms for typing on it, where because of almost how thin and flimsy Logitech's keyboard is, it makes everything kind of mushier and just a little less punchy. We also have different function rows. We have no escape key on the Logitech, same brightness controls. Then we have the keyboard brightness controls on the Logitech, and then an app switcher and a search on the Apple Magic Keyboard. We have a dictation button for both of them, then a screenshot button on the Logitech versus a do not disturb button on the Apple Magic Keyboard. Then we have the same media controls: reverse, play, pause, forward, mute, volume down, volume up. And then we have a lock button on the Magic Keyboard and a do not disturb button on the Logitech. Overall, I think Apple's Magic Keyboard has the better function keys. The only thing I'd probably swap out, which instead of a search key, I'd probably want to do a screenshot, just simply because you can do Command Space for search and it's really, really easy. So I find a screenshot to be a little bit better, although you can do a keyboard shortcut for that too. So it's a little bit semantics there, but that's what I would have preferred. But they're very comparable, and honestly, you get used to whichever one you're using. What I definitely think is objectively better is that the Magic Keyboard has an actual escape key versus the home button key. So overall, we're gonna give the keyboard feel and the function row, all of that, to the Magic Keyboard as a win. All right, next up are the trackpads. And as far as size goes, well, Logitech definitely takes the win. This 11-inch one is actually almost the exact same size as the 13-inch Magic Keyboard's trackpad. That's pretty impressive. And it is bigger than the trackpad of the 13-inch Combo Touch from previous years. So yeah, it is bigger than the Magic Keyboards right here. So as far as size goes, yeah, this one takes the cake. But as far as feeling, it doesn't compare with the Magic Keyboard. As you probably can notice, there is no sound from me pressing on this trackpad right here. It doesn't move, it doesn't do anything. That's because it's a haptic trackpad. And right now the iPad's not even on it. So it will have no reaction. Where the Logitech one has nice, really loud clicks. You're kind of satisfying. They're not the most annoying or anything like that. Sometimes you don't want a really clicky trackpad, depending on where you're at. So I think the silent trackpad and the satisfying haptic feedback you get is way better than the Logitech's trackpad, even though it's bigger. And just feeling that bit of feedback now that it's connected to an iPad here just feels so much better than Logitech's. And as you can see, the trackpad is really responsive. You can get across the iPad no problem with this trackpad. So I think you can navigate as many things as you would need to do. And I don't think the size is hindering you really at all. I have no complaints about it. This is the superior trackpad, despite the size or anything. Like I already mentioned, this keyboard can kind of flex and trigger the trackpad. So that's another downside of the trackpad, in my opinion, is it's not super reliable and dependable. And it can accidentally be clicked, even when you don't want it to be. I've also heard some complaints from some reviewers that the 13-inch size of the Logitech Combo Touch has just way too big of a trackpad, that when you're just trying to type on it, you trigger the trackpad all the time. And even with this one, I can see that happening, especially if you rest your hands on the palm rest parts here. I can see you accidentally clicking the trackpad, totally. I don't typically, I kind of keep my hands more raised up. So it's not something that personally bothered me, but I have heard it be a complaint to others. I was really rooting for the Logitech Combo Touch. The idea of this product is exactly what I wanted. I wanted something that worked really well when I needed a keyboard case, but also really optimized for drawing and Apple Pencil usage. Because if you remember any of my previous videos where I had this Magic Keyboard in them, one of my biggest complaints of it has always been that it does not optimize for Apple Pencil usage at all. It doesn't even have anything to help keep the pencil attached to the iPad. You just have to hope that this magnet holds it on. And that's pretty frustrating. So I really wanted this one to work for me. The problem is it doesn't. There's too many ways that the Magic Keyboard is still superior to the Logitech Combo Touch, in my opinion. The trackpad is far better. If we were comparing this to the old Magic Keyboard, the Logitech Combo Touch would totally have a chance. But to the new one, it just doesn't. It has a function row that's just as good. It has a really nice aluminum design here that makes it feel really, really good to use. And the charging port. The charging port is the deal breaker for me. There was several times I was using this product and I wanted to have an external SSD plugged in and charged at the same time without having to get out a giant dock or a big hub in order to connect everything to it. And I could not do that. And that was really, really frustrating. Also, if I ever want to use a magnetic stand or something like that down the road, I would want the Magic Keyboard for sure, because you're already in that magnetic ecosystem where you can just take your iPad, put it on some kind of stand or something like that, where you're not going to want a magnetic stand with the Logitech Combo Touch. It's going to be stuck in this thing the whole time. And you're going to have to pry it out of here every time you want to put on a stand. And that's just not fun. You're going to want one of those stands that it sets in, which is fine, but it gives you less options. I've even seen some companies be able to make stands that can charge your iPad Pro using the smart connectors on a magnetic stand. That's really interesting. And I wouldn't want to get one of those unless I was using this keyboard case and magnetic case in general. I also do like that I can very easily pull off the iPad and just admire how thin it is sometimes. It sounds a little silly, but when you buy something like this, you want to be able to look at it and you want to be able to know what you spent your money on. And this is a really incredible piece of technology, especially the hardware. It's so cool to just see what they did here. And you're never really going to be able to look at it when it's behind the TPU of the Combo Touch. And again, that's a minor complaint, but it is something that matters to me. And it adds to my decision where I'm going to be returning the Combo Touch. If you watch my initial review of it, I was really going back and forth on whether or not this could actually replace the Magic Keyboard for me. And to be honest, I was trying really hard to justify keeping this keyboard case over the Magic Keyboard. But I just can't, especially seeing this comparison and how many ways the Magic Keyboard is still better than the Combo Touch. And after that poor experience in the restaurant of trying to use the Combo Touch in there, it just didn't work. It was not fun. I need the Magic Keyboard for sure. Thank you for watching this comparison. I hope it gave you great clarity for which one you should get for yourself. I'm not saying the Combo Touch is a terrible product, and I think for certain people, this is gonna be fantastic. And if you're not used to using an extra charging port, then that's probably gonna make it a lot easier for you to adapt to this case. But for me, going away from that was really hard because I was used to being able to just plug a cord in there to charge it whenever I needed to and having that option. So taking it away felt really bad and it became a deal breaker for me. I also prefer that it comes in white. I really like that, and having those color options is nice. And being able to match the color of your iPad to your keyboard case, and because it's all Apple, all the colors just match up perfectly. And that is really, really nice. And clearly these products were just made for each other from the ground up. If there's anything else you'd like to know about the Combo Touch or about the Magic Keyboard, please let me know in the comments below. I will definitely answer any of your questions. And if you're looking at any other cases that you want me to compare to the Magic Keyboard, please let me know that as well. I can definitely look into those for you, and I would love to do reviews on cases that you guys suggest to me. That would be awesome. So totally reach out if there's something you're curious about. Right now, I got a goal to get to 5,000 subscribers before the end of the summer, and summer's going by quick. So please subscribe to the channel. It'll really help me out. And tell all your friends, anyone who's interested in any kind of technology, get them subscribed. I'm branching out to all sorts of different kind of tech. So you're gonna keep seeing more variety on this channel. There's gonna be something for everyone here. So please subscribe and stay tuned for more iPad content and more tech content on this channel. And as always, have a great rest of your day.